Alright, so in the last video, the hobbits were in the old forest, they got attacked by an evil tree, and were rescued by Tom Bombadil, who's now taken them to his house. And that chapter really does, like as you see in fantasy, if you read fairy tales, they teach us about enchanted forests, and I do think it's best to stay out of those. Bad things can happen there. I think fairy tales have taught us that. But anyway, they go to Bombadil's house and they meet his wife, Goldberry. Now she's kind of described as looking like a fair young elf queen, and so I used to think that she was an elf, but she's not. She's the River Woman's daughter, kind of like a wood nymph from as you see in Greek mythology. And Frodo asks, "Who is Tom Bombadil?" And she says, "He is as you have seen him. He's the master of wood, water, and hill." And she's like, "Well, does that mean that stuff belongs to him?" No, it doesn't. He's just the master of it. He's mastered it. It has no forest, that has no power over him. The forest, the Borrow Downs, which we're going to be getting into here soon, he can overcome that stuff. And this question will come up again later on. So they get fed and they go to sleep. And Merry and Pippin, they have dreams, and they're not. It has nothing. It's really nothing to do with the story. It's just normal, just dreams. But Frodo's dream, of course, is actually something that does happen, or is happening at the time, which is talked about in this book, but you don't see it. But of course, in the movies they do show it, because in a movie you would have to see that. You can't just talk about it. But what he sees is he sees this basic kind of like a wall and a tower that rises up. And there's an old man on top of the tower pacing back and forth. And you get the moons come up, and this great big eagle comes and grabs the man and flies away with them. And of course, this is Gandalf being rescued from Sauron's tower, Orthanc, by the King of the Eagles, the Great Eagle, Gwaihir, as he is named in this book. He was not given a name in the Hobbit, but it is that same eagle. And Frodo finds out that this dream is true later on at the Council of Elrond. As far as he could remember, Sam slept through the night in deep content, if logs are contented. The whole saying, to sleep like a log. And anyway, they wake up, so they're going to stay the whole day with Tom Bombadil. And so they start, they hear him, listen to him sing, and he begins to tell them about different things that have happened throughout history. Mention is made, of course, of the Great Barrows, or the Barrow Downs. Green walls and white walls rose. There were fortresses on the heights. Kings of little kingdoms fought together, and the young sun shone like fire on the red metal of their new and greedy swords. There was victory and defeat, and towers fell, fortresses were burned, and flames went up into the sky. Which is a reference to, I believe, the Kingdom of Arnor, which had become split into 3 separate kingdoms, and they all went to war with each other. And that's what led to the collapse of the North Kingdom. The mounds, the Borrow Downs, is where a lot of the kings and stuff were buried. And it says here that a shadow came from dark places far away. Borrowites walked in the hollow places. What is a Borrowite? It is a spirit, an evil spirit. And then white itself is an Old English word. they're basically the living dead, basically. And we will meet them in the next chapter, and and they again this time Frodo asks Tom Bombadil who he is, and of course Goldberry had said he just is, and Tom Bombadil says he says eldest, that's what I am, or what we would say aborigine. Now there was a owner of a Catholic bookstore that had written to Tolkien complaining and basically saying, well, Tom Bombadil saying he's God because he says I am, and that's not what Tom Bombadil says. And Tolkien, says that, I would never dare try to write something like that. This is a pre-Christian world. There is no Jesus yet. Tom Bombadil definitely isn't Jesus. He's not God. But what is Tom Bombadil exactly? He's basically the spirit of nature. Because he'll tell the hobbits that he had been here before the river and the trees, that he remembers the first raindrop and the first acorn. He made paths before the big people, saw the little people or hobbits arriving, which most likely is talking about when they first migrated westwards and settled in Bree, and then from Bree they went on, and some went on and went to the Shire. He says he knew the dark under the stars when it was fearless, before the Dark Lord came from outside. This Dark Lord is not Sauron, this is his master Morgoth, if you remember from the Silmarillion. And so Tom Bombadil has been in Middle-earth since basically the beginning of time, even before the beginning of time. He could be a manifestation of the music of the Ainur. And this is something that has been long debated among Tolkien fans, and that's what I just go by what Tolkien said, and that's why I say he's the manifestation of nature spirit, but he is nature, but he's not God. And so, yeah, we don't really, it's very vague who Tom Bombadil is, and Tolkien left it that way for a reason, and had even said himself that it's best in any story that there's got to be some enigmas, some mysteries that there does not need to be an explanation of. And so maybe we should try to explain it. Tom Bombadil is just Tom Bombadil. And then he says, of course, that he knew that the hobbits were coming, and he'd gotten this information basically from the elves, so he has some kind of contact with them. He would be known to the elves, and as we hear at the Council of Elrond, they do know of him. They've heard of him, if they don't know him exactly. And it does mention here that he knows Farmer Maggot, and that's how he knows a lot about the Shire and what goes on there. Anyway, at the end of the chapter here, though, when Frodo tells him about the ring, Tom Bombadil asks to see it, and he puts it on, and no effect. The ring has no power over him. He doesn't turn invisible or anything, and so Frodo takes it and puts the ring on for the very first time, and Tom Bombadil can actually see him. So it shows that he has even power over the ring of sorts. Could he master it? I don't think so, because I think in the end he would probably fall too, because you can't take the ring and use it for good. It is evil, and it will corrupt and destroy you. It's not a good idea. But, and so then we end with him telling the hobbits, if you get into some trouble in the Borrow Downs, here's a song for you to sing. And will they be using it? we'll find out in the next chapter, the next video. As soon as I get that read, of course. But anyway, hope you enjoy this video and my last one, and I'll be back hopefully tomorrow with another one. I'm going to just read. But anyway, until next time.